Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Beverley Council November meeting of the Policy and Finance Committee. This is a policy meeting, but there is a little bit of finance to bring to this meeting. You have your agendas. I do have one apology for absence, which is Councillor Healy, and we welcome Councillor Tucker, who is subbing for him this evening. Do we have apologies from anybody else? Yes.
Councillor Horsley is about to join us, Madam Chair.
It's great news. Thank you very much indeed. Sometimes you get so many links, don't you, that you do lose them. We are live on YouTube, so we can be seen by the public. So welcome to anybody who is watching this exciting meeting this evening. Declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest by any member of the council in respect to the agenda items listed below? Members declaring interest should identify the agenda item and the type of interest being declared. Lots of head shaking, that's good news. Are there any dispensations to any member of the council in respect of the agenda items listed below? Again, lots of head shaking, that's good news, thank you very much. So let's move on to agenda item number 3. To note the minutes from the policy meeting held on the 12th of October, that's a policy and finance meeting held on the 12th of October 2020, previously circulated, approved and signed at full council, held on the 19th of October 2020. Well, I'll move on to payments. You should have in your agenda packs, welcome Councillor Horsley, should have in your agenda packs, right, a list of payments being made between the 8th of the 10th and the 31st of the 10th, and the 1st of the 11th and the 10th of the 11th. If you remember, we've already agreed that the clerks should be able to pay routine and expected payments in the budget as a matter of routine. However, if anybody has any queries with regard to these items, you will also have received in the last few minutes a copy of the Christmas lights payment account. There were various items, Christmas Plus Limited and Glacier illumination payments, which were credited and uncredited to the wrong account. But the money is there to be paid and it will be coming out of the Christmas lights account. So I would need a proposer and a seconder for those.
I couldn't find the attachment on my email. Was everybody else able to it? And I looked at it just before the meeting for the Christmas light payment. Hang on, it may have been blocked though. Hang on a minute. No.
Can I just speak on this one, Madam Chair?
Please, Town Clerk, please.
Yeah, I'm in the process of trying to send it, but the problem is our VPN line to the our VPN line on our computers has gone down today. So at the moment I'm having to do it through memory of people's emails. But when I've done it, for some reason when I forward it on, it's not put the attachment on. But I needed to open it to come into this meeting, so I couldn't do two things at once, sorry.
Does either of you have it on your computer? Because you could do a screen share so we can actually see it.
Yes, that's a good idea.
And then
the problem we've got at the moment, our VPN lines have gone down. So if I think Matt's got it on actually we'll have to go onto an email.
Yeah, if you give me a moment, I'll try and get it.
Yeah, because if you can screen share, then we can identify the document. And
yeah,
that will be fine, wouldn't it, Linda? Do you not think?
Absolutely. If you could screen share, that would be great. I have just forwarded the email myself, so it might
be
in your boxes. I think
I've got the email, but it didn't come with the attachment. I couldn't find any attachment with it. It's all. Oh.
So will you be able to screen share that?
Just a second.
I think Matt's a work in process. Oh, there we go.
Excellent.
There we go.
So there we go. The amounts add up. It was just erroneously taken out of the current account instead of the Christmas lights account. Hence the positive and the negatives. But there we go. Happy?
Yep, lovely. Thank you, Matt. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. Well, that worked, didn't it?
Yeah. Ooh, technology. Ooh, skills.
Excellent. So I would need a proposer and a seconder, just for the records for those payments, please. Councillor Astel and Councillor Pinder. Thank you. And if we could all vote on that, just carry it through. That's carried. Thank you very much indeed. That just makes it official. Thank you. So if we move on to agenda item 5, if you remember, a few months ago, we had the idea that we might always be able to approve our own committee minutes, but that hasn't worked out very well indeed, very well at all indeed. So I'm going to propose that we go back to the old system of approving minutes of our committee meetings at the next meeting when they can be approved. So sometimes that would be our meeting, but other times it would be full council. Councillor Pinder.
Well, I was just rather confused because we agreed that in this committee with councillors Estelle and Councillor Jack approving that, and then they spoke against it when it came to full council. So I wonder what had changed in their thinking.
Councillor Estelle.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I don't see how a committee can agree its own minutes at the next meeting. The only body that can agree minutes, and they're not the committee's minutes, the clerk's minutes, is full council. I think you'll find, Margaret, if you check with Ernlicher.
No, you're absolutely right.
The next time you're on any executive committee, if you check with Alan, I think you'll find that the only body that can agree the minutes is the full council.
No, that's absolutely correct. I'm not saying that. What we did, my understanding of what we'd agreed was we would present the draft minutes to be noted. Then they would come back to the next policy meeting, and then policy meeting would approve those minutes to be passed to full council for actual final approval. So there was no suggestion that we have final approval of our own minutes. It was just that because they're often complicated and questions arise, that we would, in order to keep full council apprised of what business we were conducting, they would see the draft minutes, then they would come back to this committee and we would sort out if there are any wrinkles, and then they would go back to full council for approval. I know it's a bit long-winded around the houses, but that's what we agreed, and that's what this committee, with every member sitting on it, did agree.
Councillor Jack.
No, Margaret, my position has been the minutes are the minutes, and that's it. Off you go. If the minute records the minutes, and those are the minutes of the meeting, subject to falsehoods or whatever in that. If what she's recorded is right, it's right, and that's it, done, isn't it? The minutes are the minutes. You don't have draft minutes and then minutes are minutes, end of story.
Town Clerk.
I think one of the issues here with this is the fact that you need to have the minutes signed off and approved to allow action to take place on something. Otherwise, if it's a draft minute and it's going back to another committee again to be decided upon, it's not something you can take action on. So at the last meeting, it would have been that there were some actions that would have required doing, which would have had to wait until after this meeting to be then taken action on, and you needed the action then. And so you've got a delay in there all the time by doing that, by so really, you know, like minutes need to, it's like other committees sometimes have minutes in which they need to go to the either next available meeting, either be full council, or if their committee meeting is the next available meeting, then it's that meeting. But otherwise, if you put in a lag in all the time, you can't take the action that you require as a council.
Thank you. That was my understanding, that instead of having to wait for full council, if there was another meeting of policy and finance, then the minutes could be approved. But of course, they would then still go to full council to be noted at full council.
Well, to be approved at full council, yeah.
Full council, yes.
Yeah.
Councillor Tom Astell.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I mean, I think the committee did agree the way that Councillor Pinder has outlined previously. We did agree that, and we all did do that in good faith to see how it would go. Obviously, it hasn't worked out, and that's what my impression was, that we did it to see how it would work. It was a new way of working. We hadn't tried that before. It doesn't work, so therefore we need to find a new way of doing it. And actually, I think just the minutes just going straight to full council in the normal way that they do is the most sensible way of doing it. We just need to members just need to be on top of minutes when it comes back to the committee and have things that they need to bring up. Probably would be the best way to go about it.
Thank you, Councillor Astell. I think that's probably the wisest way forward. So we just need to propose that we're going to go back to where we were before. And if we are going now to a way of working as suggested by the town clerk, that we have meetings of the finance bit of the Policy and Finance Committee 3 weeks after the end of the last quarter, and if there is no policy business to hold in between those finance meetings, then there would be a long time before we could actually approve our own minutes and move forward. So it's probably wise to go back to how we were. Councillor Pinder.
Yeah, if Tom wants to formally propose that, I'm happy to second it. I mean, I don't have strong views on it, and I think the town clerk's probably right. So, Tom, do you want to propose that?
Yeah, I propose that that way forward, Chair.
Seconded, Margaret Pinder. Can we have a show of hands, please? Yeah, thank you. Great. Let's move on. We need an update from the town clerk following a resolution regarding the internal auditor made at full council. Town clerk, please.
Thanks, Madam Chair. The internal auditor, although it's been invited to actually come back to Beverley Town Council for this year, is declined that invitation. So I'm in the process of looking at 3 different quotes and getting some quotes for the interim audit. The interim audit, you don't have to do an interim audit. We do it as good practice. We do it as best practice. It doesn't have to be done 6 months exactly. We've got all the papers according to JPEG that we would need ready in a box that would be inspected. So at the moment I'm going to be trawling through for some new internal auditors and looking at some of their qualifying criteria, and I'll bring that back to council.
Thank you. You wanted to speak, Councillor Pinder, I think you indicated.
Oh yeah, well actually, no, all I was going to say was, it seems to me that when we don't need to worry about, I know you, the clerk was saying that the documents are in a box, but I thought nearly everything we've got is online now. The only reason I'm saying that, it might be possible to cast our net a bit wider of a field than someone who's sort of physically proximate. Documents can be scanned, because my understanding with the RBS system is that everything's pretty much online and is scanned in. Is that that's my understanding.
Yes, Town Clerk.
It's not just the RBS system they look at. They also look at invoices. They look at anything to do with employment. They look at wages, they look at contracts. There's all sorts of things they look at. It's this sample that they take on that year from the JPEG, basically. So some of it we'll be able to do online, and some of it they might want to see a hard copy, or we'll need to scan it and send it across for what's required. So, but as I say, at the moment we're just sort of looking at different alternatives. So, but a lot more are going online. Yeah.
Councillor P. Astel, you indicated you'd like to speak. You're muted.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I was just going to ask my first point of Helen. Are we in order then in appointing a internal auditor for the next 12 months?
We can appoint, but obviously we need somebody to appoint first. So we need to get the 3 quotes coming in for it, unless, because I will need to come back to council. So you can choose which internal auditor you want, unless you give me a different instruction.
Chair, the reason I'm asking is surely it would be wise of us in the advert or whatever we say for the next 12 months or the next 2-3 years. I think then if we get that internal auditor in place, then we won't have this problem.
Thank you. Councillor Pinder.
No, that was fine.
So I'd like to move, Chair, that the town clerk progresses with the tender document for to select from 3 potential internal auditors for a period of the next 12 months to be reviewed. Whatever then.
Can I amend that to 18 months? Because
18 months. Yeah, I'm quite happy with that.
be okay?
Yeah.
Sorry, who's making the appointment?
No, that we, Madam Chair, that the town clerk advertise for 3 for an internal auditor for Beverley Town Council for the next 18 months.
Yeah.
And then I presume, or I would assume, that it would either come back to this committee or to full council. Seeing as though it's appointment, I would suggest it goes to full council.
Yes, and I think if we find somebody who is doing the job well, then it would be good to keep them for next year as well as this year.
Yeah.
Pressure. Thank you very much. So do we have a seconder for that proposal, please, from Councillor P. Astel? Thank you, Councillor T. Astel. Can we all vote on that, please? Is that okay? Is that carried? Not showed of hands. Thank you. Carried unanimously. Thank you. Item number 7A. We have discussed in the past that we should have a policy for Town Council Officer Declaration of Interests and associated form. I'm going to suggest and propose that we ask Matthew Buckley at East Rhine of Yorkshire Council, as they are our senior authority, if we could use their system, which would cover everything. It seems to me, why reinvent the wheel when they have a system already? So I would like to propose that we ask the town clerk to speak to Matthew Buckley about the officer declarations of interests, but also the members' declaration of interest policy as well. We've got lots of nods there. Has anybody got any comment about that? Does that seem a sensible idea? Can I have a seconder for that? Councillor Pinder, thank you very much. Can we all show if we're happy? Trust the town clerk to do that. Thank you so much. Thank you. Anti-fraud and corruption policy. We all agreed that we would want an anti-fraud and corruption policy. Councillor Pinder very kindly sent through a copy of a anti-fraud and corruption policy from Dorchester. It's still very much in its raw state. As Councillor Pinder sent it through, there are corrections to be made within it, particularly with regard to our council and the fact it's the Policy and Finance Committee, etc. So it is still very much in draft form, but and the reason for that is because unfortunately our town clerk has been called away this week because her mum, as you know, is very poorly, and our deputy clerk has very kindly stepped in. He was actually on holiday. Great teamwork. Thank you very much indeed for doing that. But it does mean that this policy hasn't had the I's dotted and the T's crossed. Now, personally, I quite like the policy. I don't know if anybody's got any thoughts on it. The bit I don't particularly like is section 4.2 on publicity. I don't think we need that, but I'm very open to comments. I think Councillor Hopkins, you had something to say. Would you like to come in?
Yes, I was going to say, I think it's eminently reasonable as a policy. Obviously, we'll need to switch out the bits that say, for example, West Dorset for Beverley Town Council. And of course, as you say, our committees aren't using exactly the same titlings. But I think it's a sensible step forward for us. I make very minimal changes beyond the sort of, making it specific to us.
Thank you very much. Councillor Pinder.
Just for the ease of for the office, presumably that, I can't even remember, it was probably PDF, wasn't it? The form I sent through. Do we have the capacity on our system to convert PDFs to Word or not?
Yeah, got a nod there.
Yeah, that's what this was. I tried to open the PDF as a Word, then copy and pasted it into the Beverley Town Council policy format. But the chair said we didn't have time to actually look at the details.
Oh, okay. So it should actually, I'm trying to think of saving you time, because it's a nightmare when you've got a PDF and you can't change it. So it would actually be quite easy for you to make the changes. Yeah. Oh yeah, okay, that's fine then. Okay, that's fine. I had a suggestion otherwise, but if it can be done at that, that's great.
That's fantastic. So if we're all happy about it, could I suggest then that this is tidied up and it's submitted to full council next time, if we're all happy with it? If anybody's got any comments, if they would like to email the town clerk in the next few days. Otherwise, if Helen, you could just tidy it up and then it can go straight to full council. It would need to go to full council anyway, obviously. And I think it's important that all councillors see this. So it will give them a chance to have a comment about it as well. Yes, Councillor Hopkins.
Sorry, Madam Chair, just for clarity, are we proposing that we send it forward with the removal of the section 4.2 that you suggested, the publicity section, but otherwise as is, merely with the specifics replaced with our town council's details?
That would be my proposal. If anybody else, is anybody happy with that?
Yeah, I'm happy to second that, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Is everybody happy with that? I think we've got lots of nods. Yeah. Tom. Yeah. Councillor Tucker. Yeah, fantastic. Thank you. And 7C, the whistleblowing policy, is actually a NALC policy. I have no comments to make about it. I think it's perfectly reasonable. Does anybody else have any comments to make about it? Head shaking. Everybody happy? So can I propose that is passed as it's written? I would need a seconder and we would need to vote on it, seconded by Councillor Pinder. Thank you. And if everybody's happy with that, then we forward that straight to full council. Yeah. Thank you very much indeed.
Could I just ask, Madam Chair, just for the minutes on B, the anti-fraud, I didn't catch the seconder for that. I've got you as the proposer, and then was it Councillor Hopkins seconding it?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And now we come to the exciting bit, the grants committee. So I'm going to pass directly over to Councillor Horsley, who and I know that Councillor Pinder has been doing some work on this, as has Councillor Hopkins as well. So you'll get lots of input, Councillor Horsley. So you just need to unmute, please. Oh. So
David, can you, if you've got a problem, can you type it in the chat so we can see what the problem is? I guess not.
The control then, Madam Chair, you can mute people, but all you can do is request them to unmute themselves. I can't.
You run muting me. That's fine. Thanks. No. Am I? My little pointer has decided to stick.
Oh no.
Okay. Well,
the floor is yours.
As you're aware, what we're proposing is that we have a new system for grants, in which grants will be limited to 3 types. First, what would usually be an initial grant of £1,000, where the evidence as to the stability of the organisation gaining the grant would not need to be proven to the same degree as we would expect for the other grants. Secondly, a grant for a single year of £2,000. And thirdly, a recurrent grant year on year of £2,000, where each year we were reviewing the situation and agreeing that it should continue for the second year, sorry. What we're trying to do right now is to sort out precisely the questionnaire, the form that's to be filled in by the individual applicant. Secondly, a marks scheme. I'm sorry I can't get any further than that, but unfortunately, I've been unable to sit down at a computer for a fortnight. If you have any questions, by all means.
Councillor Pinder.
Sorry, can I just, I'm not quite sure that's I'm just trying to follow the description. Sorry, Councillor Horsley, your description of the scheme. I sort of missed a bit there, wasn't. So it's my understanding, hang on. So we got the 3 grant schemes.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
And they don't differ very radically, but the one which you get at the first stage, or if it's a very small grant anyway, doesn't require the same amount of evidence that they actually are a long-running charity or similar.
Councillor Hopkins.
Yeah, I was having a look at the policy that you sent through, Linda, and I think it's really good. I think probably the grants committee itself will want to have a sit down and thrash out. On the question of the weighting, I think those are good points to be considering weighting on. We might want to consider whether we assign them a specific numerical value, or whether we choose to say that all of these things must be taken into account within the grants committee. I think in some ways for an applicant, if they know that the more of these you fulfill, the more likely it is that we will offer a grant, or that if one of them is particularly highly fulfilled, they might receive one. It is probably useful to perhaps have actually a clear numerical weighting explaining how we might how we might classify, just so that they have more surety. A lot of this obviously is us trying to have a look at how we can support, support groups and give them real clarity about, what the process is for them and make it quite simple. But I think that the sort of the in principle of the one that you sent around is very good.
So that was based on 3 grants, as Councillor Horsley said. The first would be small grants of sort of £500 to £1,000, and as Councillor Horsley said, the actual proof that a bidder or an applicant needed to prove that they were a fully constituted organisation would not be as great as the general grants that would be circa £1,000 to £2,000 as a one-off, and that would be for an applicant who has to be certainly fully constituted and would provide audited accounts every year. But I think that the third group is the exciting group, and that's the partnership grants for people who are fully constituted and are running events or organisations that would need that confidence of knowing that they would have guaranteed income over the next 2 to 3 years. And they would be a company as well. For example, Beverley and Bloom would probably fit in well into that partnership group, knowing that they would be given money that they could spend, and they wouldn't have to come back to the town council every year to get funding. But there are other groups, Stage 4 Beverley and other companies who might find that partnership working quite exciting. Councillor Pinder.
Yeah, just a quick comment on the weighting. Those criteria are not right for the weighting, but don't worry, I'm working on it.
Thank you, Councillor
But
Pinder.
the principle of weighting is right, but yes, just watch this space. I'm gonna finish it tonight and send it out after the meeting. Yeah.
Councillor Tomasdale.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Just to pick on what you said about Bloom, I had a meeting with some representatives from Bloom, and I floated this possible idea to them, knowing that it was going to be one of something that was coming up at the council shortly, and they were really excited by the prospect. So I think that groups across the town are going to be really quite excited by the prospect of being able to partner with the town council for a number of years, securing that guaranteed funding that's not going to fluctuate, or if there's a change in administration or anything like that, that they know that they're going to be getting this funding for a period of time, and that security really is really beneficial to them. So I just thought I'd feed that back. That's what we'd spoken about.
Yeah, that's excellent news. Thank you. Councillor Hopkins, did you want to come back? Yeah.
Yeah, really, it was just that I think also in the policy we need to perhaps flesh out for those that are in the partnership a bit more the specifics of how we'd review, because obviously we don't want them to be burdened with, a lot of this is trying to ensure that they don't get burdened with lots of extra work to try and prove themselves again and again. But also we obviously do have to ensure that the council has, good oversight of any money that is granting. So I just think a thing for us to think about is how we can flesh that out a bit more in the specifics.
That is a very good point. Yeah, we want value for money, don't we? But we also need strategic intent.
Yeah.
Improving that is, as you say, something that we really need to be thinking about. So yeah, going forward. So we have got a framework here. The town clerk has suggested that we have an additional meeting of the grants committee on the and other interested parties on the 16th of November, when we would hope that the policy and the application forms would be available for the grants committee to discuss and decide a way forward. That would need to go out this Wednesday, so we are pretty tight for time. Councillor Pinder.
It's more than just the forms, it's actually a new policy. So So given it's actually a new policy, I mean, it can go straight to full council. You know what I mean? We can't, I mean, we don't have to bring it back to policy committee, given that we're kind of in agreement with the general principle that we shall be awarding the 3-tier grant system. So can I suggest that actually, because it's not just the application forms kind of, I mean, I don't want to say the least of it, but it's actually getting the policy in place, because the application forms are derived from the requirements of the policy. Yeah, Matt's nodding. So I think we have to be aware what we're actually agreeing is a new policy. That's the important thing. But if this meeting's happy that the grants committee, given that we agree, you know, I think in this meeting we've agreed in principle to what that is, that the grants committee can agree a policy to be submitted to full council, because everybody in this meeting will have the opportunity in full council to have their say on the policy anyway. Does that make sense?
It does, Councillor Pinder. Thank you. We do have a full council meeting on the 30th of November. Which is quite...
The timing works. The timing works.
Yes. Work. And if that is passed at that full council, then the new grant application process could be opened and promoted as of the 1st of December. So that would mean that we would therefore be in time for the next grants committee, which is the 8th of February. Does that make sense? Yeah, good. So if we could just note all those, would that be okay? I don't think we don't need to pass a motion, do we? Deputy Clerk? No, that's fine. Good. So if we just note all those dates, and it might be, if there is well, we should perhaps share what we have already. I think Councillor Horsley, you already have some working you put together.
Yeah.
Councillor Pinder has comments to make. Perhaps we could share those between us on email.
Yes.
Have something for next Wednesday to go out.
Yes. So that's really tomorrow, in effect.
Is yeah, yes.
Could I just check with the clerk, please, Madam Chair, that if it'd be ideal to get things out with the agenda, but if not every item was prepared for the agenda, it could be submitted between the Wednesday and the meeting if people need more time to work on them, or would everything definitely have to go out on the Wednesday with the agenda?
I mean, it would be better if things can all go out together, but I mean, if you can't get things ready for it, because some of the things are going to be in draft format anyway, aren't they? So, because they're going to be discussed at that meeting, and it might be that they get changed anyway. So, we could actually circulate it a bit later on in the week if we need to do that. You know, if there's going to be some, because we need a policy, don't we? So if somebody's, Councillor Pinder, are you looking at writing a draft sort of policy for the 3-tier system, or is it whoever's doing that? And
yeah,
you're all going to be looking at it, aren't you? So you'll need to amend whatever at that meeting. So we can forward it on if we can't get it done by Wednesday.
I think that Linda and I have both done quite a bit of work on this, and other people have had an input. The odds are that we can get something thrashed out tomorrow, so that what goes out with the agenda gives the framework for a discussion.
Yeah.
Would that be okay? Is that okay, Councillor Pinder? Councillor Astel, P. Astel.
Are we saying then that we're going to be amending it at the full council?
No, because we've got a meeting on the 16th of November. Just thrash this out.
Right.
Well,
is the timescales tight for getting the policy minutes out for full council?
No.
Town Clerk? That would leave.
I mean, the policy minutes, we can get those done in time. The grants meeting, if you have a meeting on the 18th, then that should give us time to get the minutes out for that as well. So everything goes to the plan is that everything would go to the full council on 30th of November. So that should be okay, Councillor Estelle. But thank you for asking.
Councillor Hopkins?
Yeah, I think the ideal is that therefore at the meeting on the 16th, we would more or less put it together, basically with the expectation that full council would approve it almost entirely, as kind of thrashed out at the grant meeting. Obviously, you know, full council always has discretion to make any changes, but the idea is that what we should be presenting to them is as close to finished and ready for them to immediately approve as possible.
Yes.
Yeah, because the minutes from the grants meeting next Wednesday will actually be very short. I mean, we may have quite a lengthy discussion, but the minutes don't need to reflect all the ins and outs. The actual business that will be conducted will basically be agreeing a form of policy, and we don't necessarily have to agree the application, but as long as we agree the policy, I think that's the most important thing. If we can get an application form done as well, great, but I think the policy is the important thing. And so it's actually, so the minutes produce, so for the office to produce those minutes, they a necessity will be quite short, even though I'm sure we're going to have a lot to say.
Okay, so I think we're agreed on that. If everybody's happy with the grants committee framework, and there being no other business on the agenda, it's now 7:16 p.m. and I can call this meeting to a close. If I could